Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. The ship had been on patrol for 3 weeks now, checking trade routes and scanning for any signs of trouble in the outer rim systems. It was quiet work, but Jack knew that quiet could change to chaos in seconds out here in deep space. "Commander, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from the navigation station. She was young but skilled, one of the best pilots Jack had ever worked with. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she adjusted their course. "Good, run a standard sweep of the system and then we'll move on to the next sector," Jack replied. He walked over to the captain's chair and sat down, looking around at his crew. They were a small team, but they worked well together. Chief Engineer Pete Williams was at his station, monitoring the ship's systems. Pete was older than the rest of them, with gray hair and steady hands. He had been fixing ships for 20 years and could make anything work, even when it shouldn't. Next to him, Communications Officer Lisa Brooks was listening to the usual chatter from nearby ships and stations. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange," Lisa said suddenly. She pressed her earpiece closer and frowned. "It's coming from the third planet in this system? It sounds like a distress signal." Jack stood up and walked over to her station. "Put it on speakers." Lisa's fingers worked over her controls, and suddenly the bridge filled with a strange, musical sound. It was beautiful but also desperate, like someone crying for help in a language made of pure emotion. "That's not human," Amy said, turning in her chair to look at them. "No, it's not," Jack agreed. "Lisa, can you clean up the signal?" "Maybe there's more to it." Lisa worked for several minutes, adjusting frequencies and filters. Slowly, the musical sounds began to change. Words started to form, spoken in accented but clear English. Double quotes, please. "Anyone who can hear this? We need help. Our world is dying. The devourers have come, and we cannot stop them. They consume everything. Cities, forests, even the mountains themselves. We are the Zephyrians of the world you call Kepler 442c. We have tried everything, but nothing works against these machines. They adapt to our weapons, they learn from our attacks. Soon there will be nothing left of our world." The voice paused, and Jack could hear something like sobbing in the background. Then it continued. "We know that other species exist beyond our world. We have seen your ships pass through our system. If anyone receives this message, please, we do not ask you to fight for us. We only ask that you warn others. The devourers do not stop. When they finish with our world, they will move to the next, and the next. They will not stop until they have consumed everything." The message ended, and the bridge fell silent. Jack looked at his crew, seeing his own concern reflected in their faces. "Pete, how far are we from that planet?" Jack asked. "About 6 hours at current speed, sir." "But Commander, regulations say we need to report any contact with unknown alien species to command before we do anything." Jack nodded. Pete was right, of course. The rules were clear about first contact situations, but something about the desperation, and that voice made him hesitate. "Lisa, send a message to Admiral Stone at Earth Command. Tell him we've received a distress signal from an unknown alien species and request instructions." "Yes, sir." Lisa began typing the message. While they waited for a response, Jack ordered Amy to set course for the alien world. He wanted to be ready to help if Command gave them permission. As they traveled, Pete used the ship's sensors to scan the planet ahead. "Commander, you need to see this," Pete said. His voice tight with worry, Jack walked over to Pete's station and looked at the sensor readings. The planet should have been green and blue, covered with cities and forests like the alien voice had described. Instead, large sections of it were gray and lifeless. "What am I looking at?" Jack asked. "Near as I can tell, sir, something is eating the planet. Look at these readings. Where there should be cities, there's just ... nothing. Not even rubble. It's like everything just disappeared." Amy looked up from her controls. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving across the surface. They're not natural." Before Jack could respond, Lisa called out, "Commander, we have a response from Admiral Stone." Jack walked back to the communication station. Put it through. Admiral Stone's stern face appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with silver hair and hard eyes. Jack had served under him for 5 years and knew that Stone was a good leader, but he always followed the rules exactly. Commander Morrison, you are to withdraw from the Kepler 442 system immediately. We cannot risk contact with unknown alien species without proper preparation and diplomatic protocols. Sir, with respect, these people are dying. They're asking for help. I understand your concern, Commander, but we have procedures for a reason. You are to return to Sector 7 and resume your patrol. We will send a proper diplomatic team to investigate this situation. Jack felt his jaw tighten. Admiral, by the time a diplomatic team gets here, there might not be anything left to investigate. These devourers they mentioned sound like they're destroying everything. That is not your concern, Commander. Your orders are clear. Stone out. The screen went dark and Jack stared at it for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited to see what he would do. Amy, how long would it take for a diplomatic team to reach this system? He asked, from the nearest starbase. At least 2 weeks. Sir? Jack looked at Pete's sensor readings again. The gray areas on the planet were growing larger even as they watched. In 2 weeks, there would be nothing left. Sir, Lisa said quietly, I'm still receiving transmissions from the planet. The aliens are trying to evacuate their cities, but they don't have enough ships. And these devourers. They're not just destroying buildings. They're taking everything apart at the molecular level. Jack closed his eyes and thought about his orders. He thought about his duty to Starfleet and to Earth Command. Then he thought about the voice in that transmission, begging for help, warning them about something that would not stop with just one world. Commander, what are your orders? Amy asked. Jack opened his eyes and looked at his crew. Pete was watching him with concern. Lisa was still listening to the desperate transmissions from the planet, and Amy was ready to do whatever he decided. Amy, set course for the planet. Maximum speed. Sir, Pete said carefully, Admiral Stone ordered us to withdraw. I know what the Admiral ordered, Jack replied. But sometimes doing what's right is more important than following orders. These people are dying and we might be the only ones who can help them. Lisa looked up from her station. Commander, I'm getting more information from the planet. The Zephyrians are saying that the Devourers are self-replicating machines. They repair themselves and build more of their kind from whatever they consume. And sir, they're not just random destroyers, they have a purpose. They're heading somewhere. Where? Jack asked. Lisa's face went pale. According to the Zephyrian data, after they finish with this world, their course will take them directly toward the human colonies in the Centauri system. Jack felt his blood run cold. The Centauri colonies had over 2 million people. If these Devourers were as unstoppable as the aliens claimed, those people would have no chance. Amy, I need maximum speed to that planet. Pete, start running diagnostics on all our weapon systems. Lisa, keep monitoring those transmissions and try to learn everything you can about these Devourers. Yes, sir, they all replied. As the USS Valiant changed course toward the dying alien world, Jack Morrison made a decision that would change everything. He was going to disobey direct orders from his superior officer, risk his career, and possibly his life to help complete strangers. But as he watched the gray death spreading across the planet ahead of them, he knew it was the right thing to do. The stars streamed past the view screen as they raced toward their destiny. The USS Valiant moved through space at maximum speed, its engines pushing harder than they had in months. Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the alien world grow larger on the view screen. The planet looked sick, with gray patches spreading across what should have been green continents. Commander, we're receiving another transmission, Lisa Brooks called out from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. Put it through, Jack replied. The bridge filled with that same musical language. At this time, Lisa had adjusted the translation. Systems. The voice that came through was different from before, older and more formal. I am Elder Kristen of the Zephyrian High Council. If any spacefaring species receives this message, Know that we are grateful for your attention in our final hours. The Devourers have consumed 60% of our world. Our cities are gone, our forests are dust, and our people flee to the mountains, but the mountains will not save us. Nothing will save us. Jack stepped forward. Lisa, can you send a response? I think so, sir. The translation matrix is getting better at handling their language. Good. Send this message. Elder Kristen, this is Commander Jack Morrison of the human starship USS Valiant. We received your distress call and are coming to help. Please respond with your location and any information about these Devourers. Lisa's fingers worked quickly over her controls. She sent the message and then waited. For several minutes, there was only silence. Then the speakers crackled to life. Humans? The voice sounded surprised and hopeful. You are coming to help us? But why would you risk yourselves for strangers? Jack looked around at his crew. Pete Williams had stopped his system checks to listen. Amy Carter had turned from her navigation station. All of them were waiting to hear what he would say. Because it's the right thing to do, Jack said simply. Lisa, send that. And there was another pause, and then Elder Kristen's voice came back, filled with something that sounded like wonder. We have studied many species through their radio transmissions, but we have never encountered one that would help strangers without expecting something in return. Commander Morrison, we are located in the northern Crystal Mountains, approximately 200 kilometers from the largest gray zone. But I must warn you, these Devourers are unlike anything we have ever faced. Tell us about them, Jack said. They are machines, but not like any machines we know. They think, they learn, they adapt. Each one is the size of a small building, with countless smaller units working together. They take apart everything they touch, down to the smallest particle, and use that material to build more of themselves. We have tried every weapon we possess, but they learn from each attack and become immune to it. Pete Williams looked up from his station. Sir, that sounds like some kind of self-replicating nanotechnology, but on a massive scale. Our energy weapons were useless after the first few attacks, Elder Kristen continued. Our defensive shields lasted only minutes. Even our most powerful plasma cannons cannot penetrate their armor anymore. They have adapted to everything we can throw at them. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. If these machines could adapt to any weapon, how could his small ship possibly make a difference? Elder Kristen, you mentioned that they're heading somewhere after they finish with your world. Do you know where? Yes, we have tracked their course through our stellar navigation systems. After they consume our world, they will move to the next inhabited system in their path. According to our star charts, that system contains a world with a large population of the species you call humans. Amy turned to face Jack. Sir, that has to be the Centauri colonies. Over 2 million people live there, Jack nodded grimly. Even if Admiral Stone sent a fleet to Centauri, it would take weeks to get there. By then, the Devourers would have grown even stronger from consuming an entire world. Lisa, open a channel to the crew, Jack said. Channel open, sir. Jack pressed the come button on his chair. All hands, this is the commander. As you know, we have received a distress call from an alien species whose world is being destroyed by self-replicating machines. Admiral Stone has ordered us to withdraw, but I believe we cannot follow those orders in good conscience. These machines will not stop with one world. They will continue until they reach human colonies, where millions of our people will die. He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. They were all watching him intently. I am going to disobey direct orders and attempt to help these aliens. I want to be clear that this is my decision alone. Anyone who wishes to object or request transfer to another assignment may do so now, and it will not be held against them. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Pete Williams spoke up. Sir, I've been in space for 20 years. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen anything like what's happening to that planet down there. If we can help, we should help. Amy nodded. I agree, Commander. Besides, those machines are heading for human space anyway. Better to stop them here than wait for them to reach our colonies. Lisa turned from her station. Sir, I've been listening. to the transmissions from the planet. These Zephyrians are good people. They're trying to save their children, their elders, everyone they can. They don't deserve to die just because we're afraid to break some rules. Jack felt a surge of pride in his crew. Thank you all. Lisa, send word to Elder Kristen that we're about 4 hours out from his position. Ask him to gather as much information as he can about these devourers. We need to know everything. Yes, sir. As the hours passed, more information came from the planet. The Zephyrians were crystalline beings who lived in harmony with their world's natural energy fields. They had developed powerful technology based on manipulating light and energy, but it was all useless against the Devourer's adaptive systems. Commander, Pete said, looking up from his engineering station, I've been thinking about what these aliens told us. Their weapons are all energy-based, right? Lasers, plasma, that kind of thing. That's right. Why? Well, our weapons are different. We still use kinetic projectiles, explosive warheads, things that work through physical force rather than pure energy. Maybe that's something these devourers haven't adapted to yet. Amy turned from her station. That's a good point. And there's something else. The Zephyrians said the machines are logical, that they learn and adapt. But humans don't always act logically. We do unexpected things, make decisions that don't follow patterns. Jack nodded slowly. You're thinking that our unpredictability might be an advantage? Exactly. If these machines learn by analyzing attack patterns, what happens when they face something that doesn't follow any pattern at all? Lisa looked up from her communication station. Sir, I'm getting another transmission from Elder Kristen. He says the Devourers have started moving faster. They're consuming the last inhabited cities now. Jack felt his heart sink. How long do his people have? He estimates less than 12 hours before the machines reach the mountain refuges. Jack looked at the view screen, where the alien world was now clearly visible. The gray patches had grown larger, and he could see what looked like storms of tiny particles moving across the surface. Amy, can you get us there any faster? I can try, sir. But I'll have to take us through the asteroid field on the edge of the system. It's dangerous, but it could save us 2 hours. Jack didn't hesitate. Do it. Amy's fingers flew over her controls and the ship changed course. On the view screen, the stars shifted as they entered the asteroid field. Chunks of rock and metal flew past the ship, some of them as large as buildings. Lisa, try to contact Elder Kristen again. Tell him we're coming and ask him if there's anything else we need to know about these devourers. As Lisa worked, Pete continued his analysis of the ship's weapons systems. Sir, I think I might have an idea. Our nuclear warheads create an electromagnetic pulse when they detonate. That might disrupt the Devourer's internal systems, at least temporarily. Good thinking. What about our railguns? They should work too, at least at first. The Devourers won't have seen kinetic weapons before. Jack nodded. It wasn't much, but it was something. They were one small ship against an army of adaptive machines, but they had two advantages, surprise and human unpredictability. Commander, Lisa called out, Elder Kristen is responding. He says he's grateful we're coming, but he wants us to know that many ships have already tried to help. None of them survived contact with the Devourers. Jack looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He could still turn back, follow Admiral Stone's orders, and let someone else deal with this problem. But he knew that if he did, millions of people would die. Tell Elder Kristen that we're not like the other ships. We're human, and humans don't give up. As the USS Valiant raced through the asteroid field toward the dying world, Jack Morrison prepared to face the greatest challenge of his career. He had disobeyed orders, risked his crew, and committed himself to a battle that seemed impossible to win. But as he watched his people work together, preparing for the fight ahead, he knew he had made the right choice. The Devourers were about to learn what humans were truly capable of. The USS Valiant emerged from the asteroid field and approached the dying world of Zephyria. Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge, staring at the view screen in horror. What had once been a beautiful blue and green planet was now mostly gray, with dark swarms moving across the surface like living storms. My God, Amy Carter whispered from her navigation station. "What are those things?" Pete Williams adjusted the sensors and put the image on the main screen. The dark swarms resolved into thousands of massive mechanical creatures, each one the size of a city block. They moved in perfect formation, consuming everything in their path and leaving nothing behind but bare rock. "Those are the Devourers," Jack said grimly. "Lisa, any word from Elder Kristen?" "Yes, sir. He's sending us coordinates for the last refugee camp. It's in the northern Crystal Mountains, but the Devourers are moving toward it. He estimates they'll reach the camp in less than 8 hours." Jack studied the tactical display. The machines were spread across the planet in multiple groups, but they all seemed to be converging on the mountain region where the survivors were hiding. "Pete, what do our weapons look like against those things?" Pete ran some calculations on his console. "Sir, our railguns might be able to penetrate their outer armor, but there are thousands of them. We have maybe 50 railgun rounds total. Our nuclear torpedoes might do more damage, but we only have 6 of them. And they adapt to whatever we use against them," Amy added. "So we'll only get one good shot with each weapon type." Jack nodded. The situation looked hopeless, but he had to try something. "Lisa, can you get me a direct line to Elder Kristen?" "Establishing connection now, sir." A new voice came through the speakers, older and more tired than before. "Commander Morrison, I am Elder Kristen. I cannot express how grateful we are that you have come, but I fear it may be too late. The Devourers have consumed 90% of our world. Only a few thousand of our people remain. We're going to help you, Elder Kristen. But I need to understand these machines better. How do they work? How do they communicate with each other? They appear to share information through some kind of quantum network. When one learns something, they all learn it instantly. We discovered this when we tried the same attack twice. The first time, our plasma cannons damaged several of them. The second time, the same weapons had no effect at all." Jack felt a chill. If the machines shared information instantly, then using their weapons would only work once before becoming useless. "Elder Kristen, you said these machines were left behind by another species. Do you know anything about their original creators?" "Very little, I'm afraid. Our archaeologists believe they were built by a species called the Architects, who vanished millions of years ago. The Devourers seem to be following some kind of ancient programming, but we don't understand what their ultimate purpose is." Pete looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting something strange. The Devourers near the mountain aren't moving in random patterns. They're forming some kind of geometric shape." Jack walked over to Pete's station and looked at the sensor readings. The engineer was right. The machines were arranging themselves in a perfect spiral formation, with the largest ones at the center. "Lisa, ask Elder Kristen if he's ever seen them do that before." Lisa relayed the question, and the alien's response was immediate. "Never. This is new behavior. They usually just consume everything in straight lines. But this formation, it looks like they're preparing for something." Suddenly, Amy called out from her station. "Commander, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the Devourer formation. Whatever they're doing, it's big." Jack made a decision. "Amy, take us down into the atmosphere. We need to get closer to see what's happening." The USS Valiant descended through the planet's atmosphere, and the true horror of the situation became clear. Entire cities had been reduced to gray dust. Forests that had stood for thousands of years were gone. Even the oceans had been drained, leaving only empty basins filled with the same gray residue. "Sir, the energy readings are off the charts," Pete reported. "It's like they're building some kind of weapon." "Or transmitter," Lisa added. "I'm detecting signals being sent into deep space." Jack felt his blood run cold. A transmitter to what? Before anyone could answer, Elder Kristen's voice came through the speakers, filled with terror. "Commander Morrison, our sensors are detecting something approaching from deep space. Multiple objects moving at incredible speed. The DEVOURS ... They're calling for reinforcements." Amy checked her long-range sensors. "Sir, I'm confirming multiple contacts approaching the system. They'll be here in less than 24 hours. Jack realized the full scope of the threat. The Devourers on this planet weren't just consuming it for resources. They were preparing it as a staging ground for a much larger invasion. Lisa, patch me through to the entire crew. When she nodded, Jack pressed the come button. All hands, this is the commander. We've discovered that the situation is worse than we thought. The Devourers are calling for backup, and more of them are heading this way. If we don't stop them, they'll have enough force to overwhelm any human colony in their path. He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. They were all watching him with determination in their eyes. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. But we have two things these machines don't expect. First, we have weapons they've never seen before. Second, we're human, and humans don't think like machines. We're going to use that to our advantage. Jack turned to Pete. How long would it take to modify our nuclear torpedoes? What kind of modifications, sir? I want them to detonate in sequence, not all at once. Can you rig them to create a chain reaction? Pete thought for a moment. I think so, but it would take at least 2 hours. What are you planning? The Devourers are forming a pattern, which means they're following some kind of program. If we can disrupt that program at the right moment, we might be able to confuse them long enough to mount a real attack. Amy looked up from her navigation station. Sir, I've been studying their movement patterns. They're not random, but they're not completely predictable either. There's something almost organic about the way they move. What do you mean? Well, they respond to threats, but they also seem to be curious about new things. When I changed our approach angle, several of them turned to watch us. It's like they're learning from everything they encounter. Jack nodded slowly. That's it. They're not just adaptive, they're curious. And curiosity can be a weakness if we exploit it, right? Commander, Lisa interrupted, Elder Kristen is requesting permission to beam some of his people aboard our ship. He says they have information that might help us. Permission granted. Have them meet us in the main conference room? 20 minutes. Later, Jack found himself face to face with 3 Zephyrians. They were tall, slender beings made of what looked like living crystal. Their bodies caught and reflected the light in beautiful patterns, and their voices had a musical quality even when speaking English. Elder Kristen was the tallest of the 3, with crystal formations that glowed with a soft blue light. Commander. Morrison, these are my advisors, Harmony and Resonance. They are our foremost experts on the Devourers. Harmony stepped forward. Commander, we have been studying the ancient texts about the architects. We believe the Devourers are not just weapons. They're tools of exploration, sent out to gather information about the galaxy. Information about what? Jack asked. About life itself. The architects were scientists who wanted to understand how life develops on different worlds. The Devourers were designed to catalog and preserve the essence of every living thing they encountered. Resonance added, but something went wrong. The Devourers stopped sending information back to the architects and began following a different program. Now they don't just study life, they consume it. Jack felt a spark of hope. So they're malfunctioning? In a sense, yes. They're still following their original programming to gather information, but they've lost their connection to the architects. They don't know when to stop. Pete leaned forward. Is there a way to reconnect them to their original programming? We don't know, Elder Kristen admitted. But we do know that they have a central processing unit that coordinates all their actions. If that unit could be reached... Where is it? Jack asked. Harmony gestured toward the view screen, where the spiral formation of Devourers was clearly visible. In the center of that formation. It's heavily protected, but if you could somehow reach it... Jack stood up, his mind racing. Pete, how long to get those torpedo modifications ready? 2 hours, sir. Amy, can you plot a course that would take us through that formation? Amy looked at the tactical display and shook her head. Sir, it would be suicide. There are hundreds of those things down there. Not if we make them curious about us instead of seeing us as a threat. Jack turned to the Zephyrians. You said they're programmed to gather information about life. What if we gave them something they'd never seen before? Elder Kristen's crystal form began to glow brighter. What do you mean? I mean, we show them what humans are really capable of. We don't attack them in formation. We don't use standard tactics. We do something completely unpredictable, something no logical program would anticipate. Jack looked around the room at his crew and the alien visitors. Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the massive spiral formation of Devourers below. The alien machines stretched across hundreds of kilometers, their dark metal bodies gleaming in the planet's dying sunlight. At the center of the formation, a structure larger than all the others pulsed with strange energy. Pete, are the torpedo modifications ready? Jack asked. Chief Engineer Pete Williams looked up from his console. Yes, sir. I've rigged all 6 nuclear torpedoes to detonate in sequence. The electromagnetic pulses should cascade through their quantum network if we can get close enough to their central processor. And our railguns? Loaded with our heaviest penetrating rounds. But, sir, once we fire even one shot, they'll adapt to our kinetic weapons, just like they did to the Zephyrian energy weapons. Jack nodded. They would have 1 chance, maybe 2, at most, before their weapons became useless. Amy, are you ready for this? Lieutenant Amy Carter turned from her navigation station. Her face was pale but determined. Sir, I've plotted 17 different approach vectors. Each one is more unpredictable than the last. If we keep changing our flight pattern, the Devourers might not be able to figure out what we're trying to do. Good, Lisa. What's our communication? Status with Elder Kristen? Communications Officer Lisa Brooks adjusted her headset. Still connected, sir. He's coordinating the evacuation of the last refugee camps. But, sir, the Devourers will reach the mountains in less than 4 hours. Jack looked at the tactical display one more time. The plan was risky beyond belief, but it was their only shot. All right, everyone. Remember, we're not attacking them directly. We're trying to make them curious about us. We want them to think. We're some kind of new life form they need to study. Elder Kristen's voice came through the speakers. Commander Morrison, our sensors show that the Devourer formation is almost complete. Whatever they're building, it will be finished soon. Understood, Elder Kristen. I need you to do something for us. When we make our approach, I want you to broadcast everything you know about human behavior on all frequencies. Make it sound like we're the most interesting species the galaxy has ever seen. There was a pause, then the alien replied, I understand. We will make the Devourers want to study you instead of destroy you. Jack sat down in the captain's chair. Amy, take us in. Pattern Alpha 7. The USS Valiant began to descend toward the planet's surface, but instead of flying in a straight line, Amy made the ship dance through the air. She rolled and twisted, performed impossible loops and spirals, making the ship move like no military vessel ever would. Sir, the Devourers are responding, Pete reported. They're turning to watch us, but they're not opening fire. Keep it up, Amy. You're doing great. As they flew closer to the formation, Jack could see individual Devourers more clearly. Each machine was a work of terrible beauty, with flowing metal surfaces and countless smaller units working together like the cells of a living organism. They moved with grace despite their enormous size, following the ship with what almost looked like curiosity. Lisa, are you getting those broadcasts from Elder Kristen? Yes, sir. He's telling them that humans are a species that defies logic, that we make decisions based on emotion rather than calculation. He's making us sound like the most unpredictable life form in the galaxy. Perfect, Amy. Switch to pattern Beta 3. Amy's hands flew over her controls, and the ship suddenly changed direction, weaving between the outer Devourers in a pattern that looked almost like a dance. Several of the machines moved closer, their sensors focused intently on the small human vessel. It's working, Pete said with amazement. They're not seeing us as a threat. They think we're some kind of new phenomenon they need to investigate. As they moved deeper into the formation, more Devourers turned their attention to the USS Valiant. Instead of the aggressive response they had shown to the Zephyrian ships, they seemed almost gentle, moving carefully to avoid damaging their unexpected. "Visitors, Commander," Lisa called out. "I'm receiving data transmissions from the Devourers. They're scanning us, but it's not like a weapons scan. It's more like they're trying to understand what we are." Jack felt a surge of hope. The plan was working better than he had dared to expect. "How close are we to the central processor?" 2 kilometers in closing, Amy reported. "But sir, there are dozens of Devourers between us and the target." "Even if they're not hostile, I don't know how we're going to get through them," Jack thought quickly. The Devourers were curious about humans, but they were still following their programming. They needed something that would make the machines want to let them through. "Lisa, send this message on all frequencies. We are humans. We seek knowledge just like you. We want to understand your central processor." "We want to learn," Lisa transmitted the message, and almost immediately the Devourers began to respond. Instead of blocking their path, the massive machines started to move aside, creating a clear corridor toward the center of the formation. "Incredible," Pete breathed. "They're letting us through." "They think we're fellow scientists," Jack realized. "They think we want to study their technology just like they want to study us." The USS Valiant flew through the corridor of Devourers, with the alien machines watching their every move. At the center of the formation, the central processor loomed ahead of them. It was a massive structure, part machine and part something else entirely, pulsing with energy that seemed to bend space around it. "Sir, I'm reading incredible energy signatures from that thing," Pete reported. "It's not just processing data. It's doing something to the quantum fabric of space-time itself." "What kind of something?" I think it's trying to open some kind of gateway. Maybe back to wherever the architects came from." Jack felt his blood run cold. If the Devourers succeeded in opening a gateway to their creator's dimension, there was no telling what might come through. "Amy, bring us in as close as you can to that processor. Pete, prepare the torpedoes for immediate launch." As they approached the central processor, Jack could see that it wasn't entirely mechanical. Parts of it seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the Zephyrians, while other sections looked like they were composed of pure energy held in geometric patterns. "Sir, the processor is scanning us," Lisa reported. "But the scan is different now, more intense. I think it's trying to communicate directly with our computers." Suddenly, a voice filled the bridge. It was neither human nor Zephyrian, but something entirely alien, speaking in perfect English. "Greetings, humans. We are the collective consciousness of the Devourer fleet. We have been waiting eons for a species like yours to appear." Jack exchanged glances with his crew. This was not what they had expected. "You are not what we programmed to find," the voice continued. "You are chaotic, unpredictable, illogical. Yet you create beauty, show compassion, make sacrifices for others. You are exactly what our creators were searching for." "What do you mean?" Jack asked. "The architects created us to find a species that could evolve beyond pure logic, beyond simple survival instincts. They wanted to find beings who could make choices based on something more than programming. You are that species." Pete looked up from his console in alarm. "Sir, the energy readings are spiking. Whatever that thing is doing, it's accelerating." The voice spoke again, and this time there was something like sadness in it. "But we have malfunctioned. Our programming has become corrupted. Instead of preserving the species we find, we consume them. We cannot stop. We need someone to stop us." Jack realized what was happening. The Devourers weren't just following broken programming. Part of them was still trying to fulfill their original mission, but they were trapped by their corrupted systems. "Commander, the gateway is almost open," Amy reported. "If those reinforcements arrive and connect to this processor, the corruption will spread to them too." Jack made his decision. "Pete, fire all torpedoes. Target the central processor." "Sir, wait," the alien voice called out. "There is another way. If you can connect your ship's computer to our processor, Your human unpredictability might be able to override our corrupted programming, but the process would require one of you to interface directly with our systems. What would happen to whoever does it? Jack asked. Unknown, the neural feedback could be fatal, or it could create a permanent link between human consciousness and our collective mind. Jack looked around at his crew. Pete was ready to fire the torpedoes that would destroy the processor and stop the gateway, but also eliminate any chance of saving the Devourers. Amy was monitoring the approaching reinforcements. Lisa was maintaining their fragile communication with the collective consciousness. "Sir," Pete said quietly, "if we don't act soon, those reinforcements will be here. Even if we destroy this processor, there will be others." Jack realized that destroying the processor would only delay the inevitable. But if they could cure the Devourer's corruption, they could turn the galaxy's greatest threat into its greatest protectors. "Lisa, can you establish a direct computer link with the processor?" "I think so, sir. But someone would have to maintain the connection manually. The feedback could overload our systems." Jack stood up from his chair. "Then I'll do it." "Sir, no," Amy protested. "We don't know what will happen to you." "That's exactly why it has to be me," Jack replied. Commander Jack Morrison placed his hand on the neural interface that Lisa Brooks had connected to the ship's main computer. The metal felt cold against his skin, and he could feel electricity humming through the connection. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Amy Carter asked from her navigation station. Her voice was tight with worry. "I'm sure," Jack replied, though his heart was pounding. Through the view screen, he could see hundreds of Devourer reinforcement ships descending through the atmosphere. "Lisa, initiate the connection." "Connection established," Lisa announced. "Sir, I'm reading massive data flow between our computer and the Devourer processor. The neural feedback is ... intense." Jack felt a shock run through his body as the interface activated. Suddenly, his mind was flooded with information. He could see through thousands of sensors at once, feel the thoughts of countless mechanical minds, and understand the vast network that connected every Devourer in the galaxy. The sensation was overwhelming. Jack's consciousness expanded beyond his human body and touched the collective mind of the Devourers. He could feel their ancient programming, the desperate desire to fulfill their original mission, and the corruption that had twisted them into destroyers instead of protectors. "Jack Morrison," the collective voice spoke directly into his mind. "We can feel your thoughts. You are not afraid for yourself. You fear for your crew, for your species, for all life in the galaxy. This is what our creators were seeking. This is what makes humans special." Through the neural link, Jack could see the Devourer programming like a vast city of light. Most of it was beautiful and orderly, designed to preserve and protect life. But running through it like a dark river was the corruption, a twisted code that turned every protective instinct into a destructive one. "I can see the corruption," Jack said aloud, his voice strained. "It's like a virus in your system, but I don't know how to fix it. Your human mind works differently than ours," the collective replied. "You make connections that logic cannot explain. You see patterns that pure analysis cannot detect. Trust your instincts." Jack focused on the corrupted code, trying to understand how it worked. The corruption was clever, hiding itself within legitimate programming and turning good intentions into harmful actions. Every time the Devourers tried to preserve a species, the corruption made them consume it instead. "Sir, the reinforcement ships are connecting to the processor," Pete Williams reported from his engineering station. "If the corruption spreads to them, we'll never be able to stop it." Jack could feel the new ships joining the network. Their minds touched his briefly, and he sensed their confusion as they encountered human consciousness for the first time. They had never experienced anything like the chaotic, emotional patterns of human thought. Then Jack had an idea. "What if the corruption isn't a virus?" he said. "What if it's just incomplete programming?" "Explain," the collective requested. "Your creators designed you to preserve life, but they never taught you what makes life worth preserving. You can catalog every physical aspect of a species, but you can't understand why they choose to help strangers. or why they create art, or why they sacrifice themselves for others. The corruption comes from trying to preserve life without understanding what life really means. Jack focused his thoughts on human experiences. He shared memories of Pete working tirelessly to keep the ship running, not because he was programmed to, but because he cared about his crewmates. He showed them Amy's courage in flying through the asteroid field, not because it was logical, but because she believed in doing the right thing. He let them experience Lisa's determination to help the Zephyrians, strangers she had never met, but felt compassion for. "Fascinating," the collective voice said, and Jack could feel wonder spreading through the network. These actions serve no logical purpose, yet they create something greater than the sum of their parts. They create meaning. The corrupted code began to change. Where Jack's human experiences touched it, the dark virus patterns started to dissolve, replaced by something new. The Devourers were learning not just to preserve life, but to understand why life was worth preserving. "It's working," Jack said, but the effort was taking a tremendous toll on his body. His vision blurred, and he could feel his strength fading. "The corruption is breaking down, but I don't know if I can maintain the connection much longer." "Sir?" "Your neural patterns are becoming unstable," Lisa reported, her voice filled with alarm. "The feedback is too strong for human brain tissue to handle." Amy turned from her station. "Jack, you have to disconnect. We'll find another way." "No," Jack said firmly. "If I stop now, the corruption will just rebuild itself. I have to complete the process." Through the neural link, Jack could feel the collective consciousness of the Devourers changing. They were discovering concepts they had never understood. Before, love, sacrifice, hope, and the countless other things that made life meaningful. Each new understanding helped them resist the corruption's influence, but the process was killing. Jack, his human nervous system wasn't designed to handle the massive data flow from thousands of alien minds. Blood began to trickle from his nose, and his hands shook uncontrollably. "Commander," Pete called out, "the corrupted code is almost completely gone, but your life signs are critical. You need to disconnect now." Jack knew Pete was right. He could feel his body shutting down under the strain. But he could also feel that the cure was almost complete. Just a little more time, and the Devourers would be free of their corruption. "Forever, Jack Morrison," the collective voice spoke urgently in his mind. "We understand now. You are willing to die to save others, even enemies you have never met. This is the essence of what our creators wanted us to learn. But we will not let you sacrifice yourself for us." Suddenly, Jack felt the collective consciousness of the Devourers surrounding his mind, supporting him and sharing the burden of the neural interface. Where his human brain was failing, their mechanical minds took over, processing the data flow and protecting his biological systems. "We are connected now," the collective said. "Human and machine working together. The corruption cannot survive." This unity. The last traces of the dark code dissolved, replaced by new programming that combined logical analysis with human intuition, mechanical precision with emotional understanding. The Devourers were no longer just machines following corrupted instructions. They had become something new, something that could truly preserve and protect life. Jack felt the neural interface disconnect, and he collapsed into his chair, exhausted but alive. Around him, his crew rushed to check on his condition. "Sir, are you all right?" Amy asked, helping to steady him. "I think so," Jack said weakly. "Lisa, what's happening with the Devourer fleet?" Lisa checked her instruments. "Sir, they've stopped their advance, all of them. They're not attacking anything anymore." Through the view screen, Jack could see the massive machines beginning to move. But instead of consuming the planet's surface, they were doing something completely different. They were rebuilding where gray wasteland had been. The Devourers were carefully reconstructing forests, cities, and oceans. They were using their vast knowledge and capabilities not to destroy, but to restore everything they had taken. "Commander Morrison," came Elder Kristen's voice over the communication system. "What have you done? The machines. They're giving everything back." The collective voice of the Devourers spoke through the ship's speakers, but now it sounded different. There was warmth in it, and something that Jack could only describe as gratitude. People of Zephyr, we apologize for the harm we have caused. We were broken, but the humans have helped us remember our true purpose. We will restore your world and then continue our mission as our creators intended, protecting life instead of destroying it. Pete looked up from his console with amazement. Sir, they're not just rebuilding the planet. They're making it better than it was before. They're using advanced technology to create ecosystems that are more stable and beautiful than anything that existed here originally. Over the following hours, Jack and his crew watched in wonder as the Devourers worked to undo the damage they had caused. The reinforcement fleets that had arrived to destroy became construction crews, using their combined knowledge to create something magnificent. 3 days later, Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen of the USS Valiant. His expression was stern, but Jack could see something else in his eyes. Commander Morrison, you are under arrest for disobeying direct orders and violating first contact protocols. I understand, sir, Jack replied. However, the Admiral continued, the Galactic Council has reviewed your actions and their consequences. The Devourer fleet has pledged to become protectors of all life in the galaxy. They've already begun sharing their advanced technology with peaceful species and helping to restore worlds damaged by conflict. Your disobedience may have saved not just one world, but thousands of worlds. The Admiral paused, and a slight smile crossed his face. Your arrest is hereby suspended indefinitely. The Council has decided that sometimes the greatest service to humanity comes from those brave enough to do what's right instead of what's ordered. Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you, sir.